Hey everybody. So there's a recent post from Speckle about bridging the AEC gap. I'd like to just share my thoughts on this. I think it's a pretty interesting article. The link will be below in the comments if you want to check it out yourself. I won't read this, but I just kind of want to quickly go through it and share just some of my thoughts on it. So they talked about CAD versus BIM. And so CAD software, they mention Rhino and AutoCAD. I don't have a whole lot of experience with Rhino, but I've worked with AutoCAD for many years. By the way, this building here, and I love this about Speckle, how they can embed these links into their pages or anywhere, really. But this building looks like a trash can. That's immediately what it reminds me of, but it is pretty cool and I like it. So they talk about CAD and BIM, and then they mention as example BIM tools, Revit and ArchiCAD. ArchiCAD, I've never really used that, but Revit I use every day. Is one better than the other, or should you shift from CAD to BIM? Their argument, because they're an interoperability tool that connects these different design softwares together, so you don't have to be dependent on one software over another. I think that's incredibly valuable. And whenever I build a tool, I like to think about it, okay, it's going to tie into Revit, but I like to think about it and design it in a way that's independent of Revit and can be easily used with other tools. The main functionality and how it works isn't tied directly to a single design tool like Revit. But I think that way of thinking is really important, because if you have that mindset with your design tools, then you can be kind of flexible in what you use and kind of tool agnostic and use whatever fits the job. And then you can evolve into those other tools when new ones come up, instead of being just stuck in Revit and that's it. I personally think that CAD is not as good as Revit. Like, if we compare AutoCAD to Revit, the tools themselves are not comparably the same, and one is better than the other one. I think also you can have CAD type tools that are also BIM tools, like they fit within the BIM environment. AutoCAD is essentially a digitized version of hand drafting. And when it came out, it was a huge thing, and the change from hand drafting to digital wasn't as dramatic, I think, compared to jumping to BIM. It picked up pretty quickly, and it allowed people to do things that before they couldn't do. Like, they could create new designs quicker without, going in and erasing or redrawing entire sets. They could just switch things out really quick. So it sped up the development of design documents a ton compared to before, when you had to hand draft. But essentially it's the digitized version of that. BIM, on the other hand, is much, I think, broader, and it incorporates design and data and leveraging that data at various phases of the project. But I would like to kind of disconnect it from, or disconnect design software from the BIM environment and what that means. Revit is a great tool and can manage data really well, and we can take advantage of that. Even if you're not using or thinking about BIM, Revit is going to be a better tool than CAD. So a huge selling point to Revit was the fact that when you created your design, your data and geometry was reflected from various perspectives, and things were automatically updated. So in 3D, if you modeled some elements, some walls, those elements would be reflected in your sections, your plan views, your schedules, and that's huge. So aside from all the other benefits of working in a BIM environment, the Revit tool in itself is much more valuable than CAD. I think it's good to move into Revit because it is a better design tool. And really working with BIM effectively and taking advantage of that and allowing your partners to take advantage of that and use BIM is a much more complex thing. But if we compared AutoCAD to Revit, Revit's going to win, and I would prefer that everybody work within at least a tool that's similar to Revit, not a 2D tool like CAD. So I do think there's value in bridging the gap between like tools like AutoCAD and tools like Revit, because in a lot of scenarios you're working with somebody that's in CAD and you're in Revit, and you want to take advantage of that tool's capabilities. And if you default to your partner's tools every time, then you're not taking advantage of all of those things that you could. And by using something like this, you could try to bridge that gap, but also, so really the big thing I disagree on this is just there are tools that are better. I don't like the idea of just a single tool or being stuck in some proprietary tool, but there are better tools out there. And if we can use tools like Speckle to bridge that gap and make it more efficient and easier to integrate AutoCAD or CAD platforms into BIM tools like Revit, then that's incredibly beneficial. But also having the conversation around the evolution of what this means and not being stuck in a single proprietary tool, but let's continue to evolve. Like Revit is our choice here, but let's think about what's the evolution of this. Are there ways that we can create applications or tools that are independent of Revit but may tie into it? And a lot of what, Speckle's even doing. So, but yes, I think there is a huge value in using these newer tools because they're just more modern in the way that they interact with geometry and data that some of those CAD tools can't. Overall, I like this article. They do share a example. This architecture firm collaborated between Revit, Blender, and Grasshopper. I do think collaborating with Revit and CAD is a little bit more difficult, but can be done, and I've seen it done on many projects. That's what I would be really interested in, and seeing how Speckle addresses that, because you could link in CAD into Revit, but what about the 3D aspects of it, right? You're not, you're getting all the value from designing your MEP systems in Revit. You can do calculations, you can create those schedules, your views are automatically updated. There's various other things you can do with it. Internal coordination and coordination with any other discipline that's doing stuff in 3D. But if architects are doing stuff in 2D, it makes it a little bit difficult because you don't get necessarily the 3D geometry. And that's what would be interesting to see, is what does that workflow look like in Speckle. So anyways, I just wanted to share my thoughts on this. This is a wonderful article. I definitely recommend checking it out. In the descriptions below, you'll find the link. Let me know your thoughts if you disagree with anything I've said here today, and I will see you in the next one.